Oh, hiyo minasan. Welcome back to our playthrough of Our Life Beginning and Always. We are continuing the step 4 finale of this series before the wedding DLC, which will be the real finale when that comes out. But we are continuing step 4, where we left off. Ooh, there we go. I'm like, why wasn't that working? Curious Cove's eyes slid down to your phone. You let your hand fall back down to your side. You held the phone pressed against the palm of your hand. It's Ma. She wants to know when we'll be there. Cove scratched the back of his neck and shook his head. His mouth twitched like he had a funny thought. Dang, parents, always trying to make us come home before it gets too dark. There's no escape from curfew as long as we're in this neighborhood. It's like we warped back into being little kids the moment we set foot in the entrance sign. Cove's nose crinkled at the fake disgust, and you both burst into a fit of giggles. It'd be nice not to have to worry about bills again. Sometimes. After one last glance, you put your phone away. Cove gave a small shrug. Ready? Yep. Let's go. Together you left the beach, feeling the call of home pulling you forward. The both of you ran off towards your mom's house, leaving the waves behind, but welcoming the beginning of summer. Cove and you ran up from the beach, sand flying from your steps. Cove made it to the road first, but you managed to catch up to him by the time you reached the house. It wasn't exactly a race, and yet it also wasn't not a competition. Both of you were laughing by the time you bumbled through your old front door together. You inhaled deeply and shouted loud enough to be heard anywhere in the house. We're here! Your moms were seated in the living room. Their eyes sparkled as they locked in on you and your light dusting of sand.
Hello!
Welcome home! Mom leaned forward, eyebrows raised at your jubilant entrance. Ma sighed wistfully.
Aww.
That brings back memories. Cove chuckled shyly as he scratched the back of his head. I hope we're not too late. Nope, you're just on time. But you better start packing it up. Liz will be waiting. Ma nodded as she stood up from her seat. She lightly ran her fingers over her clothes to smooth out the wrinkles. It took you a second to remember where you had put your stuff. You needed to get it all in the car so you could get everything back to your hotel. Can I help? You shrugged and directed him to your bags. With Cove, your mom's, and yourself on the job, it only took one trip to the car to get everything. Cove firmly closed the trunk and you thanked everyone for the assistance. Of course, kiddo. Come along, Flame family. Let's get in the car. Come on, Cove, let's go. You've been part of the Flame family for years. Thanks. Exactly. Well said, Blue. Cove climbed into the back seat with a decidedly touched expression on his face. You got in on the other side. When everyone was situated and buckled, the engine started, and Ma pulled out into the street. You couldn't help but feel amused to be stuck in the back seat with Cove. Your mom's driving you around. It really was like you were little kids again. Cove caught you staring at him and gave you a bent smile. He was probably on the same wavelength as you from the sheer mischief in it. There was some light chatting on the drive. No one brought up anything too deep. It mostly became swapping jokey stories. The entire trip was marked by a heavy sense of anticipation. Everyone was ecstatic to see Liz and hear what she had been up to. When Mom pulled out her phone to call Liz, Ma followed the signs to the correct pickup area and asked you to shout if you saw your sister. Yeah, Liz, we're at Wing B. There's a blue sign that says North America.
Alright.
Tell her we're right in front of the building with the blue windows. She says she's outside, right by a yellow truck. I see at least 3 yellow trucks. I think they're doing work at the airport. The back and forth continued, with Ma driving around in the wide circular airport road while Mom attempted coordination between her and Liz's location. Aha! You leaned forward, peering out the front of the car. A tall, poised silhouette pulled a pale purple roll-on suitcase behind her. It was definitely Liz. She waved to the car. Ma parked along the sidewalk next to her, and Mom pulled her phone away with a cheer. Mission accomplished, team! Ma excitedly reached over to grasp Mom's raised hand, thrilled that both of her kids were back.
Good job.
That's right. Liz came closer and yanked open the back door beside her. She popped her head into the car, her smile ornery. I can't say things, despite how tired she appeared. It must have been a long trip for her, yet her expression was the same familiar smirk that you had grown up with.
Hey.
Hello, children. I'm back. Rude? Rude? Liz shrugged, unaffected by your joking accusation. He'll survive. The two of you were definitely siblings. I'm gonna poke her cheek. I'm gonna poke you. I'm gonna poke you. Her eyes watched your finger with confusion until you poked her. Her jaw dropped at your sheer audacity. Liz leaned back out of your reach and booped your nose before you regained your balance and pulled back. Well, hi to you too, kiddo. Hello, sweetie. It's so nice that you're here. Hi, Elizabeth. He jokingly huffed at her. We're not children. Whatever you say, baby boy. She turned her gaze back to Mom and Ma. You really know how to make someone feel appreciated. Her spirits were high. You could tell she was just as happy to be here as everyone was to see her. She left the door open but ducked out to walk around the back of the car. She opened the trunk and lifted her luggage in. I'm gonna move your junk, Blue. I'll keep it in front of my bag so you can get it later. Ma's dropping you off first, right? Yes, but that's not junk. It's important. It's important things. Don't mess with my luggage. Liz slammed the trunk closed without responding. Liz swung around to the front to open the door. You noticed that her hair had a few flyaways, no doubt from a long day of traveling. She leaned against the frame of the car, giving you and Cove a significant look. I am not sitting in the middle. I already had 5 hours of that nightmare on the flight. There's no way I'm getting between the two of you. I mean, really, who would ever want to be the person pulling Cove, Holden, and BlueFlame apart? Oh, she gets it. Liz understands. Cove puffed up indignantly, yet again, at her classic tease of your relationship. Liz continued along like she didn't notice.
So?
I don't care how you decide who's scooting. I figure you can fight it out somehow. Cove glanced over at you and shrugged. He unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to the middle. I'm sorry you're always in the middle, Cove. Some people just must get their way. It's okay. Growing up, it was normally me and Liz putting you in the middle of things. Memories. Not what I meant to do. With the window seat open, Liz squashed herself into the car and shut the door. When everyone was settled, Ma began to pull out.
Let's go.
We're off. Liz crossed her legs, compacting herself slightly. She braced most of her weight on the door behind her instead of sitting up straight. It gave her a little more room. Hopefully we finish this journey. This car is almost as old as we are.
Now.
And it's still just as good as you are. We're equivalent to this junker? You put as much fake hurt into your tone as you could manage. Neither of your moms took you up on your teasing. I feel insulted being compared to this rust bucket. This doesn't even have enough cup holders, Mom. Ma? Mom turned up the radio as Mom merged onto the highway. The station was familiar, the normal soundtrack for when she had driven you and Liz around town. Liz bounced in her seat, enjoying the classic tune. The song would be old enough to vote at this point if it was a person. That was hard to believe. With Liz, the conversation livened up despite it getting later and later into the night. She told you all about her week and all the travel preparations she made. By the time she made it to the actual tale of travel itself, Liz started chuckling. On the plane, Liz had sat next to a couple of girls who had talked about how well they could read people. Liz recounted their conversation with her in hilarious detail, as they had apparently tried to guess her occupation after only shaking her hand. Neither of the girls could agree with one another, and Liz had refused to just tell them. However, the drive to your hotel was only so long. Eventually, your group arrived. You yawned and got out of the car when it stopped. Cove clambered out after you. Liz gave a loud sigh of relief for all the extra space she found herself with. You and Cove grabbed the luggage and then waved off your family after you said your goodbyes. After they left, you and Cove went to find your room. You scanned the key card to unlock your hotel room. It sounded out a soft beep and you turned the handle of the door. The door creaked open and then you craned your head in to take a look. The first thing you noticed was a large king-size bed in the middle of the room. It was a prim modern looking space. Sorry, I was making sure I said it correctly, and then I had to make sure I could stay saying it correctly. It seemed clean and smelled faintly like floral air freshener. A smile played on Cove's face as he watched you take in the space. The bed's nice, huh? Which one of us is gonna use? Cove, hold it! Are you serious? I'm kidding. I want to share, really. Good. Because you weren't going to have a good time if you didn't want to share. Cove let out a breath in relief that he had been holding on to. I got a good hotel, didn't I? Looks like your room at Kyra's place. Cove pouted exaggeratedly. That just sounds wrong. Well, that room was like a good hotel room, so that means this is a good hotel room. I mean, yeah, I wasn't saying it wasn't. I was just making a comparison. You and Cove continued to chat as you settled in. You unpacked some of your stuff and checked out all the room's amenities. Cove pointed out the mini fridge and started puzzling over what food could be ordered to the room. However, the fact was, you both were exhausted. It didn't take too many yawns before you both changed into pajamas and called it a day. You had to hunt along the wall to locate the light switch. When you finally found it, you flicked it off with a sense of triumph. You turned your head over to Cove, who stood behind you in his pajamas. He was cozy and comfortable, but the pieces didn't match. He never minded that. I'm exhausted. We both need our beauty rest. Cove smiled, a soft expression that was adorable.
All right.
Okay, let's go to sleep. Despite saying that it was bedtime, Cove took a step towards you. He wrapped his arms around your back and you leaned into his embrace. Then he lifted you off your feet. What? Still not putting you down, Cove promptly dropped himself backwards. The both of you crashed onto the tight tucked sheets of the hotel bed. He laughed the entire time. Cove bounced on the landing and absorbed most of the impact. You laid on his chest, feeling a little jostled. You're an absolute madman! You shook your head jokingly. His laughter turned into a snort. He smiled up at the ceiling, a thought clearly crystallizing. My dad used to do that kind of thing with me when I was little, sort of. Nostalgia was clear in his voice. It was a fond memory, and you felt something warm in your chest. I remember you talking about it when you stayed over at my house as a kid. He'd lift you up really high and bring you back down. Yeah, I have a cool dad. You made a small noise of understanding that turned into a yawn. When Cove yawned in return, you pulled the sheets until you were actually under the blankets. Sweet dreams. You shifted yourself closer so that you could lean in. You kissed Cove and felt his lips perk into a smile before kissing you back, obviously enjoying his goodnight kiss. Cove wrapped his arms around you, snuggling next to you. He let out a contented breath. You reached out to hold Cove under one arm and then used your other hand to comb through his hair. The two of you relaxed into one another, and you knew neither of you would want to be anywhere else. I can't believe we're really here. You and Liz and everyone else are going to be here in Sunset Bird again. I was staring at all the scenery going by while we were driving here, and it honestly felt like we never left. He ran a hand down his face. I mean, in some ways it feels like it's been ages and everything's different. Some of that's definitely because I'm staying at a hotel instead of being in my room at Dad's, but yeah. I just hope things go okay. Cove nodded. He understood completely. I'm looking. A yawn forced an interruption into the statement. Cove was undeterred. I'm looking forward to this. He tucked his head into your neck. You felt his lashes flutter close against your skin. Yeah, I can't wait.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, Cove. I want the named. I want adult Cove to actually say my name, but that's not in the game yet. His words were a whisper you barely heard. It might not even have been that exactly. You might have just been guessing. Cove always had a habit of mumbling. It was okay either way. Whether you heard it or only thought you heard, the sentiment was true regardless. Cove would see you tomorrow when he opened his eyes and the sunlight returned to your hometown of Sunset Earth. You comfortably drifted off to sleep and eagerly awaited seeing Cove tomorrow as well. Your eyes gently opened to see a dim, unfamiliar ceiling. You recalled where you were, a hotel room. Yawning, your muscles felt relaxed and warm enough that sleep threatened to pull you under again. Morning. Cove's voice brought you back to consciousness. The heat made sense now. You knew the comfortable weight against you was your boyfriend. His arm was draped around you and his fingers were lightly drawing shapes on your pajamas. You twisted over to face him fully. Morning, sleepyhead. Cove raised an eyebrow. His index finger drew a question mark across your back, pulling a giggle out of you. You knew what I meant. Have you been up long? You hooked your heel around his calf and trailed up the space behind his knee. He hummed contently. Not too long. You buried your fingers into his many strands of pale green hair. Fluttering his eyes shut, Cove mumbled in satisfaction when you gave his scalp a small scratch. As you combed through, your smile softened. You admired the way his silky hair curled around your fingertips. Neither of you were making any moves to get up and actually start the day. It was sweet and comfortable to be wrapped up in Cove. You could indulge just a little while longer. Eventually, enough time flew by that there really wasn't any minutes to spare. There were too many people waiting, so you both crawled out of the sheets together. Standing up, Cove took a few seconds to stretch. He glanced over at you with an animated expression. I'm really looking forward to your mom's anniversary dinner tonight. It's gonna be fun. I think so too.
I mean...
This whole trip is great, actually. Being here with everyone is like having another chance at being a kid. We can do all the stuff we used to do. And all the things we never did but wanted to. What did we want to do and never did? Yeah, the world is our oyster, Cove. Jumping on the bed, you stood in a power stance in the center. What the hell? What the hell, Blue? We run the course of our lives. We're in control of our destinies. Exactly. Well, we better get back to it, huh? We got a pretty full schedule ahead of us today, and your mom's big day. You smirked. So much for being a kid, so many responsibilities. I don't think seeing our friends really counts as responsibilities, Blue. Fine, you got me there. After that, you and Cove moved around each other, busily getting dressed and ready for the day. Light laughter and chatter filled the air the entire time. Bags were packed and phones were sought after. Cove caught it with a noisy slap in between his two hands. He stared over at you with wide eyes. Shrugging, you tried not to grin, but it was a losing battle. Remind me to remind you not to do that again. I'll walk over to get it next time. Worried still, he wiped off the phone screen on his shirt. You chuckled in agreement, knowing full well that you both would likely forget and play catch with the phones again at some point later. There was nothing else stopping either of you now. In minutes, you were hopping onto your ride and heading back to the neighborhood. It was another beautiful summer day in Sunsetford, and you couldn't resist rolling the windows down so you could absorb it all during the drive. Cove sat across the seat from you, near the opposite window. His gaze was locked outside, catching all the old landmarks the vehicle was passing. Your spirits rose even higher the moment you made it home once more. Eager, you hopped out of the car and let yourself inside. Your moms knew you were going to be there that morning. But the second you made it past the threshold, an excited scream nearly scared you out of your shoes.
Hi!
Oh, look at Lee! Look how pretty she is! She's always so pretty. Blue! And guess what? I'm here too! While your heart rate settled, a broad grin quickly took over your whole face. Since your cousin moved out on her own, you noticed that she really found her own groove. She was still the same loving person she'd always been on the inside, but she expressed herself in new ways. Lee was strong, kind, and smart. Over the past few years, she graduated college with a degree in history. Though last you heard, she was pursuing her dream, working towards getting into the music industry. Lee! Excited, you shouted just as loud as she did. Lee hugged you tightly, nearly knocking you off your feet. Lee leaned into the side to glance past you and meet Ko's eye. The grin on her face widened while she waved. Shut up, Lee! Hi, Ko! Hey, nice to see you, Lee. I got in practically at dawn. It was a whole thing, but at least I made it here alive. Lee exhaled and slumped her shoulders to emphasize how exhausting the ordeal was. Behind her, Liz made her way over. She crossed her arms at the scene. I'm here too, in case you were wondering. I'm always wondering if you're there somehow, somewhere. Liz's lip twitched before twisting into a smug smile. She brushed her straight hair out of her face. Hey, you make it sound like I'm always following you around. I have a life of my own if you weren't aware. I know, but when I'm home, I'm always keeping an eye out for my big sister. Old habits. How sweet. I miss the days of checking to see if someone else made it to the TV first, too. You laughed. Of course, that's what her mind would go to. Another friendly shout rang out from the living room. It was as cheery as ever from the many times you'd heard it over the years. Good morning, family. Your parents both came out from the side hall together. Morning.
Well?
Now that everyone is here, I do have a little something to mention. Ma put her hand lovingly over her wife's. Mom leaned her head into Ma's with a matching affection. We're all still having dinner together, but Pam here actually made plans to take me out to brunch to celebrate our anniversary. Just the two of us. Please, she hooked an arm around Ma's waist. Sorry to push you out, but I'm sure this group of mature grown-ups will be able to entertain themselves for an afternoon. We don't need to find a babysitter or anything. Totally, Lee. We could do this. Yeah, have fun, moms. Don't worry about it. Understood. We'll tell you all about our shenanigans at dinner. This works out, actually. An afternoon open means there's time to meet up with Terry and Randy. Hopefully they're free today. Your two school friends still lived around the area. They knew you were coming for your mom's party, but when or how much you might arrange to see each other wasn't set in stone.
Sounds good.
Definitely, we should call them.
All right.
I have some people I'd like to say hi to as well. Liz had her cell phone in hand, ready to get her plans made before she was even done speaking. Arching an eyebrow, she then directed the next part at Lee. Would you want to come along? We missed out on a lot of bonding time in the past. Yeah, I'd love to. It'd be an honor to hang out with you, Liz. Oh, and whose fault is that? You put your hands on your hips, pretending to admonish her. Liz huffed. Would you rather have spent less time with Lee growing up? No, but you could have joined us more. Liz's expression softened. She ran a hand down the front of her outfit, smoothing the fabric. You're not wrong, but today I'm calling dibs. Excellent, it's settled. She squeezed her wife's hand. Her gaze took in the whole room, ecstatic to have the house full again. Today is going to be perfect.
Yes.
I think so too. I truly couldn't be happier with my wife, my children, and our whole beautiful family. It's already a wonderful anniversary. There were awes and sweet comments from the group gathered around the couple of the hour. Seeing how your moms were, you couldn't help but hope that when you got to be their age, that you could be as proud of your life as them. The Ma's attention then fell on you, and the look on her face twisted mischievously. What are you gonna go at here, Ma? A shiver shot down your spine. This is a very good time of year for a marriage, don't you think so? With snickers, all eyes eagerly slid over to you and Cove. Shocked at her implication, his cheeks burned red. It's up to Cove. I really want Cove to propose. There was no missing the meaning in Ma's words. She was clear as a bell, and she knew it. I'm waiting for him to ask. But you stared. I didn't realize my phone was on. Sorry, guys. But you stared straight ahead, trying to conceal the marriage thoughts spinning in your head. The last thing you wanted was to pressure him into acting before he was ready. You caught Cove shyly rubbing at the slight scar that was still visible on his arm. Oh, Covey boy. Covey boy. My little Cove. He's so shy and so cute. His stuttering never quite reached full sentences. It instead turned into silence. Cove's brain was shutting down. Ma had sympathy for him.
There.
You don't have to say anything. It's just a little thing to ponder. Thanks, Ma. Hopefully, he asks. I'm wanting that direction. At that, Cove's mouth snapped shut. With a stiff nod, he crickly glanced at you. If it was only the two of you here, you got the impression he would have had something to say. For now, a meaningful look was all there was. Right then, let's get back to what we were doing. After that, you enthusiastically began setting up plans to meet with your friends. They were both able to come see you, having kept their schedules free for this, and you couldn't wait. Cove was also speedily sending text messages. Since you conveyed the plans to Terry and Randy, you imagined he was letting his parents know about what he was going to be up to. The group continued to chat and catch up until it was time for your mom's brunch and your big meetup with your friends. Soon enough, everyone was out the door looking forward to their fun-filled afternoons and the dinner later that night. Once outside on the neighborhood street, you looked to Cove. He stood at your side with a bent smile. Terry and Randy were driving into town while you and Cove were traveling on foot to meet them at an easier-to-reach spot. Man, we really are kids in Sunset Bird again. Having to rely on other people who actually have cars to get to really get anywhere. Now we're stuck walking wherever is nearby. We never drive anyway. Cove rolled his eyes, landing them on you amusedly. Fine, you're right. I do like walking. Let's go. You bounced forward several steps and shot Cove a playful look over your shoulder. With that, the two of you began your trip down the old road. It was a casual stroll into town, and before you knew it, you were at one of the large parking lots in Sunset Bird. It was the one that used to have the little crepe stand. Remembering the delicious smell, you got lost in thought. The store did well enough that it moved into a full-size building a couple years ago. You'd seen pictures. It was very cute. The parking lot was now just, well, an empty lot that cars could theoretically park in. Not many took the offer. Cove pulled out his phone, texting Terry and Randy in the group chat to let them know you'd made it. Someone must have answered already because Cove gave you a status update while staring at the screen. Randy texted, "I can see you." A blare of a car horn cut you off. You and Cove both turned towards the source of the noise. One of the windows rolled down.
Hey, buddies.
Oh! Your friends had arrived and making a spectacle out of it as expected. Being the only car meant that they got the pick of the lot, so they pulled into a stop in front of you. The window closed back up, and instead, the two front doors popped open. Terry and Miranda stepped out onto the pavement. Hi, Cove! Hi, Blue! A cheery wave, Miranda skipped towards you. Terry, on the other hand, walked speedily over to Cove, squeezing him into a hug. She looks so cute! Look how cute Miranda looks! A quiet laugh escaped Cove, along with the majority of air in his lungs. He didn't fight the constriction, but instead gave Terry's back a pat with a large grin spreading across his face. When he let Cove go, Terry came right up to you. He held his fist up for you to bump it. We're gonna make a turkey. Your shoulders gradually began to shake harder while your lips twisted teasingly. Confused, Terry's eyebrows pinched together like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Gobble gobble. You wiggled your fingers, thinking of them as long, colorful tail feathers. Terry snorted the moment the image clicked in his brain. Gobble gobble. It felt so nice to have your friend group reunited as adults. Terry was currently a full-time lifeguard down at the busier beach a town over. You were proud of him. He helped a lot of people in his line of work. Miranda took Cove's hand in one in yours in her other, her eyes alight as she gave you both a gentle squeeze.
So great.
I'm so happy to see you again. Hey Terry, hey Miranda. He answered assuringly. It was clear that he was equally glad to see them. This reunion was long awaited. For a while, Miranda had been working hard as an assistant at a school while continuing her own education. She also kept busy running a small online shop selling craft knickknacks she made. It's been forever. You look so cute! Aw, stop that. The pink in her cheeks deepened at your compliment. I mean it! You knew how full Miranda's plate had been for a while now, but despite the busy schedule, she really did take time to put together a fantastic look. Miranda released your hands. Giggling, she eyed you both carefully. So, how have you been?
It's nice.
Things have been nice. It's fantastic.
That's cool.
Really? I'm glad for you. You stood more confidently and straightened your back. That made her giggle again. You're sparkling. What about you? I'm super. Terry sidled next to Miranda and put her arm around her shoulder. Sighing dreamily, Randy chuckled up at her boyfriend. Yeah, things have been unbelievable. He pressed his cheek against Miranda's, and she let out a light squeak. The sight put an amused grin on your face. Wait, Randy? Did I just say Randy? I saw a Randy, and I'm like, who's Randy? Your friends made a wonderful couple. They knew each other well and cared about each other so much. It was no shock at all when you heard the news that they started dating. The corner of your mouth curled playfully while you took in the warm welcomes all around. At times, it was kind of funny how your group of 4 friends evolved into 2 couples. Not that you were complaining about it, you thought it was an amazing thing. Cove then pulled his phone out and peeked at the screen. He repeated the motion every so often. He raised a curious eyebrow at his unusual behavior. Cove was too focused on whatever he was doing to even notice you noticing him, which was even stranger.
So,
Is there anything either of you want to do while we're here? Any place you want to see? I'd be up for a lot of things, but actually there's something I want to do right now. Right here. Oh yeah? What's that? Terry poked Cove's arm playfully. Miranda met your eyes, silently asking if you had any idea what Cove was talking about. You shrugged. I just want to see my friends. Huh? Cove, you're already doing that.
Well...
True, but I could be doing it even more. You, Terry, and Miranda all turned to Cove with identical, incredulous expressions. His stare moved to a point past you 3, and you heard the scrape of sand and gravel underfoot. Someone else stepped into the parking lot. Startled, you jumped at the call of a warm voice shouting over.
Sup, guys and gals?
Derek, oh my goodness! Oh, look at him! He looks so good! Oh, my boy! Oh, he's so big! Running a hand through his hair, the person who crossed the lot was unmistakably Derek Suarez. He was beaming the whole way. It's been too long, even though it hasn't actually been that long, but long enough. Oh, you ran over and hugged him. He was comforting and solid, but he was also big enough that it was hard to fit him in your arms. You could feel the rumble of his laughter against your cheek. Derek held you in return.
I missed you.
Aw, Derek! He spoke to you gently. You were thrilled at just being there, reunited with him. Derek was a good friend of yours, and he had been for a long time. Hey! He waved over to Terry and Miranda pleasantly. Over the years, they had all met several times in passing, simply through being friends with the same people. Sup, big man? Hi! It's great that you could come! Cove put himself next to Derek. Happy, he clapped a hand on his friend's shoulder. Hi! Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Of course, thanks for inviting me. Sheepishly, Cove looked back at you and the others. That's when it clicked in your mind. It wasn't his parents that he was texting earlier, it was Derek the entire time. Derek is in town for a few months to help my dad and his dad with some work. Yep, I'm working on my own business thing too, but I'm still involved with running the scuba shop when it's called for.
Very nifty.
Humming, Derek elbowed Cove.
So?
But hey, we don't have to stand around here for my sake. What's the plan? Let's hit the town. Eager to get going, everyone piled into Terry's car. The rest of the afternoon was spent visiting spots all over Sunset Bird, laughing and reminiscing the whole way. Once it started getting late, Terry brought you and Cove back to the neighborhood. You didn't have to walk there after all. You didn't get out until the promises were made to see each other again before your trip ended. Side by side, you and Cove stood in the street and waved at the car as it drove away. Terry tapped the horn for 2 honks while Miranda stuck her hand out the window to wave back. You caught Derek in the back window, giving you both a wide grin. Sighing, as soon as the car turned down another street, they were finally out of sight. Well, that was one party. Time for another. Ready to go see your moms? Of course, it's far too early to hop off the party train. Cove raised his eyebrows before letting out a hearty laugh. He nodded in the direction of the house.
Come on.
Lead the way, conductor. Choo-choo! Spirits high, you and Cove crossed the distance to your house. It was almost time for the anniversary dinner. You barely stepped over the threshold of the condo before Ma descended and eagerly welcoming you both. The usual greetings were followed by questions on everyone's well-being, after which the conversation moved to the excited chatter about tonight's dinner plans. Cove excused himself for the restroom to freshen up before being on the move again. But when— oh my God, Cove! What the hell? Oh my boy! Oh my boy! Oh! He dressed up! Because he remembered last time where he had to dress up for the club. Oh my boy! Oh, but he looks so good! I mean, the shirt is a little weird, but you look so good! Oh, look at those muscles! Oh, my cool boy! Where did that come from? I packed it with me so I could get dressed before dinner without having to go back to the hotel. Didn't you? Or maybe you still have stuff here at your mom's place? I wasn't changing, my dear boy! I hate to break it to you, but no, I definitely didn't do something crazy like that.
Huh.
But your mom's party, it's at the country club. Yeah, and so are middle-aged folks in Hawaiian shirts. What's your point? This isn't like those summer soirees where they're having a real party. We're only going for a regular meal. Cove was as befuddled by your explanation as you were by his actions. He threw his arms up, desperate for understanding.
Seriously?
How can you not dress up nicely for a country club? I don't think the Cypress is as special as you've decided it is. You saw Ma, she was in informal clothes, and she's one of the guests of honor. You realize now that whenever you went to the country club on a normal day, it was family time with just you, Liz, and your moms. Each time Cove came, there had been more exciting things going on. You never would have thought of that before, but his perspective suddenly made a lot more sense. His frown wobbled and his cheeks became far pinker. He looked down at his own self, regrettably, as he pulled the cuff ends of his shirt. He seemed more like a scolded child than a grown man dressed for the latest charity gala. I thought she was gonna get changed while you and me were... You look very nice. That earned you a sheepish smile, though he still clearly wished his look hadn't garnered any extra attention. Cove's eyes stole a glance at the hall, as if he was calculating if he hadn't time for another quick change. Unfortunately for him, it was not meant to be. The time to head out had come far quicker than you expected. Cliff and Kyra swing by the condo to make sure everything is in order, and for your second surprise that night, Cliff was also in formal clothes. Formal clothes meaning a button-up shirt. Great. Cove's face excitedly whipped towards yours at the same time Cliff went to Kyra's. The two men pointed at one another. See? He knows! Oh, you guys are just father and son. Exactly, sport. Kyra was talking to me like I was crazy. You and her thought alike in terms of Holden boy antics. The aforementioned Kyra placed a hand delicately yet dramatically across her eyes. Clifford, our son only knows this because you're the one who raised him. Cliff chuckled, his arm moving to scratch the back of his neck. Yeah, that's my boy. The end of Cove's mouth gently bent up. He truly was his father's kid in more ways than even he realized. They may be the only ones in the group, potentially the only guests at the entire club, all gussied up, but at least they can now take solace in one another, and that looked to be good enough for them. All the Flame family, as well as the honorary members Cliff, Kyra, and Cove, headed out at the same time to the cypress. It was to be a perfect reunion. An impeccably smart host greeted you on your arrival, smoothly leading the way to the set of tables reserved for your group. Once you all settled in, chosen drinks were poured into delicate glasses. The food would be coming out later, letting you soak up the atmosphere for a little longer. Smiling, your parents faced the group of familiar faces, all gathered here together to share this special day with them. Mom reached over and took Ma's hand, clasping it between both of hers.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here tonight, gang. Marrying this lady right here is the best thing I've ever done, and there's no one else I'd want to celebrate that with. Yes, we're so lucky. Not only do we have each other, but we've got such a large and loving family through all of you. Around you heard people saying aw and chuckling appreciatively at the comment. Lee had clasped her hands tightly in front of her, her eyes shining. Your eyes met Liz in misty ones, and the affection she had for her mom's carried over to you too. Oh, you returned your attention towards the happy couple just as they leaned in to kiss, smiling all the while. The table responded with cheers and clapping, shouts of happy anniversary and other congratulations continuing even after they'd broken apart. Mom beamed as she watched Ma giggle dreamily. The waiter reappeared, delivering delicious plates of food, and dinner began in earnest. Both conversations and laughter continued to flow freely as the night went on, and the two families relishing the opportunity to be together once more. Eventually, after your hunger and thirst had been fully satisfied, the plates were cleared and the event began to draw to a close. Cliff and Kyra were exchanging goodbyes with your family before heading out together. Cove gave his goodbye to his parents while hanging back until your moms were ready to head off. You were getting a lift back with your moms. It was already late, so you discussed the possibility of going straight to the hotel rather than going back to the condo, but Cove had asked if they'd mind taking him back to the neighborhood. He wanted to visit it a little longer. Your moms had happily agreed. Liz and Lee were feeling tired, so your mom swung by their hotels during the trip home while you and Cove made the full journey with them. Riding in the back seat of your mom's car with Cove felt more than a little nostalgic. As your eyes drifted over to him, his head resting on the window, it was hard to believe how much time had passed. Mom stretched as she got out of the car, smiling over her shoulder as she headed towards the house. Time to put my feet up, you two joining us? Cove shook his head. No thanks, it's your anniversary. You don't have to entertain me. I'll take a walk. It's never any trouble to have you over, Cove.
You alright with that?
Let him do as he please, Lonnie, but you better not stay out much later or there'll be trouble. Ma chuckled as Mom waggled a finger, her expression exaggeratedly severe as she reprised a role that, in truth, she never really played. Neither of your parents had been particularly harsh as you'd grown up. Ma joined in on the act. Don't go too wild, 'cause there's no school tomorrow. Laughing, they made their way inside, leaving you standing out in the dark street with Cove. You didn't even need to ask him why. You already had the answer for this. He wasn't yet ready for the day to end. Without a word, Cove began to stroll down the road. You walked alongside him. You'd known your destination long before you arrived at the dark and utterly deserted beach. There were no lights down here, nothing but the moon and the stars for illumination. The only sounds were the gentle waves rolling in and out, the soft sound of footprints you left in the sand. In other words, it was perfect. Cove stepped out on the waves without a word. He looked up at the sky with a smile and then tucked his head down and began to pull his fancy shirt off. He tugged it over. Oh my god, look at the muscles! He tugged it over his head and lobbed it backwards, further up the beach and out of reach of the waves. Didn't know I'd be getting a show. Cove froze, his arms still raised from where he'd thrown his shirt. Slowly, he came back to life, stiffly pulling his arm back down. Your commentary had made him self-conscious. Oh, my boy! Laughing, you clapped your hand in delight at his awkwardness. Cove slipped his dress pants off and tossed them back in roughly the same direction as his shirt. He was down to just his polka dot boxer briefs. Sometimes you were really struck by the ways in which he was braver than his younger self. This was definitely one of those times. He never ever would have done this when you were both living on the street, but you also know that he wouldn't do it with anyone other than someone he spent all those years with. Cove waded further into the water until it came up to his chest. You unfastened your clothes and left them behind you, just as Cove had done moments before. You didn't even bother to see where they'd fallen before following him deeper into the sea. Cove grinned as you approached. I'm gonna be in so much trouble with my moms when we get back.
I guess.
Yeah, oh well. Think fast. He splashed water at you as soon as the words left his lips, giving you no time to prepare. The splash had caught you full on, leaving you spluttering and drenched. You splashed him back. Seeing that what you were doing, Cove put his hands up for protection. It was no use, the water washed over him, leaving his hair soaked through. Cove sighed and then looked at you mournfully, and then the sudden shift in mood alarmed you, but those worries disappeared as soon as he opened his mouth. We're still not merfolk. The world is cruel. Oh, the world is so cruel, Cove. We should be merfolk. You snickered. After a moment, Cove's mock sadness broke, and he joined in. The two of you wound up drifting further down the shoreline, chatting and enjoying the chance to be back in the beach that had provided the backdrop for so much of your childhood. Eventually, a silhouette of structures appeared up ahead. You drew closer and realized it was the old playground. Cove spotted it too and hurried towards it, dragging himself out of the water and heading into the park. Wet sand coated his feet and lower legs with every step, clinging thickly enough that it began to resemble a bizarre pair of boots. As you followed him, you wondered how many visitors this little park got these days. There are officially no children living in the neighborhood now. Cove gazed at his surroundings in wide-eyed awe. He didn't care at all that he was soaking wet and dressed only in his underwear. Crouching, he gently pushed one of the child-sized swing sets, marveling at it all.
Wow.
I can't believe how tiny everything is. We were seriously small enough to use these. He shook his head, unable to fathom just how little you'd both been when you'd first met, and then walked over to the monkey bars. Once, these had been a challenge for you, and now they were little more than waist height next to Cove. Cove turned his back towards the bars and hopped up onto them with ease, sitting on them comfortably. It was strange seeing adult Cove just juxtaposed with the baby playground. This place had been something so exciting to Cove back when he first arrived, and apparently it was to this day. Cove smiled eagerly as you approached, kicking his feet up in the air happily, briefly forgetting the low vantage point until the tip of his toes scraped along the ground. He continued to swing his feet, but with a little more care. You thought it was adorable. In a moment you were home. It just so happened to be the place you'd grown up, but really, anywhere you could be with Cove was that for you. He held a special place in your heart for so long, and so much of your life had been shared. You'd grown up on the same street, which had given you some common ground, but it went far beyond that. You had both chosen from a young age to share your life with each other. You wouldn't have it any other way. Here we go again. Looks like it. I'm going to actually stop this here, so we're going to have one more episode after this to finish off this. But thank you all so much for joining me on another episode of Our Life Beginning and Always. Step 4, as I said, is a monster, and I'm trying not to make hour-long episodes of this series. I want them to be a lot more contained and digestible for you all. So there will be one more episode of this for this part, and then the wedding DLC will be one episode. I don't care how long it is. It'll be one giant monster episode to end the series. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye, everybody.